Hello everyone, Carlos Flores, back on basics. So before we begin this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Back on Basics 9985. Hit the notification button so you can get notified of any new videos that come on board. If you have any topics, any questions, any suggestions, put them in the comment section, please, and I will be happy to answer them for you, give you my take on them, or make a video on them as well, or even shorts. Shorts. And so the little things, right, in life that make you smile. Chemicals. Remember what I said, right? Every time you smile, your brain sends chemical signals to the body. It releases this, I call it happy chemicals, so that way so that the body knows that you're feeling good. So remember, even putting a pencil in your mouth makes you think that you're smiling, and that those signals are sent. I've said that so many different times, but I want to make sure that I emphasize that, because sometimes when we're down and we just need to smile so that our bodies are pumped with that happy chemicals. I mean, all it needs is for you to smile, or for you to put a pencil, and then your mouth muscles actually your mind thinks that you're smiling. It's amazing, right? Psychology. That's why I love psychology. So, but anyways, if you want to connect with me on other social media outlets, you can do so on Facebook. You can search for me at Carlos Flores Jr. On Instagram, you can type at Back on Basics. On X, you can also type at Back on Basics. And again, I know that these topics are general, right? I give you my specifics. I mean, I give you my stories, so that way you can get examples of it. But at the same time, if you have a specific question, or if you have a question that you don't want to put in the comment section because it's personal, I get it, then connect with me on Facebook or Instagram or X, and send me a private message, so that way I can either make a video, right, answer your question. More than happy to do so. And so today's topic, give it a thumbs up, but today's topic is on trauma. I've been waiting to talk about this topic, because this topic is very important. I mean, trauma, everybody has gone through trauma. Physical trauma, mental trauma, emotional trauma. I mean, there's so many different ways that trauma comes into our lives. And I know that all of us, and I'm talking about support system, our villages, all of us have dealt with trauma along the way. And the thing is, trauma is also, it's also based on a spectrum. Remember what we talked about in yesterday's video about spectrum, right? It's just a range. A spectrum is a range that goes from nothing to everything and everything in between. So there's a spectrum for trauma as well. And so that's the reason why trauma sometimes is very tricky to, as a therapist, it was very tricky to get to the root of it. Remember our iceberg, right? Where 20% of your issues are up and above, and you can actually see them, you can sense them, you can feel them, you can go over them. But the thing is, below the water, right, below the iceberg, there's 80% that you may have glimpses of it from time to time, but not unless you do the work to get the 20% up that you can see, or you can sense. Or if you can work on that, and as one thing gets processed and you're moving on to another, then part of the 80% that's under, right, that you don't see, will bubble up. So I'm telling you this because sometimes, in the process of seeing a therapist or a counselor or a life coach or whatever, or anybody that you're talking to, you may think that you're done with something, with an issue or a problem or something, right? But then it may bubble up even stronger. What it means is this, right? Is that you have scratched the surface of your issue. Let's call it an issue, just to be on the same page. And that kind of goes away, but then now the deep-rooted problem that started that issue comes up. It bubbles up, and now it comes in 2 or 3 or 4 times as strong as the original one that you had at the beginning of the iceberg. And it's hard. It's hard because a lot of times you think that you've dealt with it, but it goes around again. But it doesn't really go around. You have actually dealt with that specific issue, but it's related to something else that it's even stronger, that you may have not realized that you've had it, but it's been under the iceberg water, that 80% that you really don't know what's going on until it bubbles up again. So that creates trauma as well sometimes. I mean, it is what it is, right? It does create trauma. So, so we said trauma, right? It's a delicate topic. It's very intricate. As a therapist and as a studying psychology, it takes a little bit of time to maneuver through and go deep, and it may not be all at once. And I'm telling you this because there's no like one shot that just gets rid of your trauma. You have to process. You have to talk about it. You have to make sure that you accept your past. Go back to my video that says accepting the past, because if you don't accept your past, good, bad, or ugly, then you won't be able to move forward. You have to accept your past. Why do you think I'm going through making these videos, different topics and everything, and at the same time, I'm dealing with my stuff? I'm actually dealing with my stuff. Everything that I make a video, besides your suggestions, those are the things that I'm working on. Again, I want to humanize the fact that going to back on basics, it's okay. Basics, okay. Being in the present moment is okay. Moving forward, even if it's just half a step, it's still moving forward. In your mind, it's still moving forward. So you're still moving forward. It's okay. You don't have to fix the world in one day. And sometimes we tend to want it to be done because it hurts, because it aches, because it brings out so much emotion, because it brings out so much anxiety. And it aches, and it aches. And that's when some people, don't get out of bed, start taking medication or start taking drugs, so that way they can mask the pain. Believe me, it doesn't. What it does is it puts a Band-Aid on it, but you still have to pull the Band-Aid off and deal with the issue, so that way you're able to process it and move forward. So if you can think of this, right? Think of yourself as I don't know if you've seen parasailing before, where you have a harness and then you have a parachute in the back, right? And a lot of the times, all it needs is for somebody in a boat to drive you out, and eventually you run a little bit, and eventually you lift yourself, and then you're up in the air. It is not trauma. If I can create that visual in you. So let's say again, a person is with a harness. The parachute is in the back, right? The boat starts going, but all of a sudden, there's a storm. There's wind. There's hurricane-like winds. There's so many things. Sand is blowing in your face. the parachute doesn't even open because it can't even open. It's just stuck on the ground. And the thing is, when it's stuck on the ground, it's not capturing the wind that's coming towards it, so that way you can go up. You stay on the ground. And as a matter of fact, now there's a tug of war between the boat that's trying to get you out and up, with you being pulled back because of the wind, because of the sand, because of the everything, because of the rain, and your parachute is stuck on the ground. Trauma. That is my example of trauma, because what you're doing is you're barely holding on. You're trying to move forward, so that way you're able to give yourself a chance to get that parachute up, so that way you can go up in the air, right? But you're not, because you're barely getting by. You're barely making it day by day. You're barely getting up. And sometimes you don't even get up until noon, 3, 4, or you don't get up. Honestly, and I'm going to be very honest with you, sometimes I don't want to get up. I don't want to get up because there's so many things. Remember, as I talk to you about the power of compounding things, that you have victories, right? Trauma works the other way around. Trauma also uses the power of compounding, and you have to be careful, because as stressors and anxiety start to pile on, then, people start losing hope. People start not wanting to go day to day. People don't want to do the things that they enjoy doing. Remember, go see the other video that I talked about. Remember, yesterday's video was believe in a cause, right? That should motivate you to move forward. Remember, I give you the example, right? I always wear, and during the summer, autism awareness ribbon, because I want everybody to understand that autism is a spectrum, and autism could be a range, but people are not familiar or as familiar with autism, and that's the reason, one of the reasons why I wear that. Remember, I showed you my shirt, and actually, I have it here. because after doing it in the video, I actually kept it here. Forever Fathers, right? That's another cause. That's the father support group that 3 of us co-facilitated, and the fathers were very focused, because remember, our friend Renee, who passed away a few years ago, when we asked him, Renee, what do you do as a father to support your kids? And he said, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Again, right? That's another cause that I'm very deeply enthralled in, to the point that sometimes I've thought about creating maybe an online father support group. I haven't done it because I want to speak with my co-facilitators, so that way to see if that's something that could benefit. Because I know that some of the fathers have been asking about the group, and I know that the group is going at Kids First, which is a nonprofit in Roseville. The group is still going on, so you can sign up to do that. But again, sometimes the fathers, again, right? We build a relationship. Remember, that's one of the things that I always tell you. Relationships and relationship building is huge, because that's how you build your support system. That's how you make your village a lot bigger. That's how you deal with things. That's how when trauma comes, you can reach out to people that you have built a relationship, and they can do the same to you. It's like a different perspective. They're looking at you from a different perspective, and they'll be able to give you advice. But remember, and I've said this yesterday, and I've said this before, only you can make those decisions. You can't have anybody tell you that this is the way to do it, and you should do it this way, and force you to do things. Only you can make those decisions. And maybe they tell you something, and maybe they're right. but you don't do it. But then you realize that you do. It's okay. You can do it again, or you can listen to them and accept their suggestion again, right? Watch my video on gift giving. It's very important. All of these are very important. So let's go back to trauma. Remember the story that I told you about the war, right, in El Salvador when I was little. I mean, I was 7 or 8. I mean, I know PTSD here, yes. I get anxious, yeah. I mean, it's hereditary. I mean, it's anxiety runs within my family, and I'm being very honest with you. But sometimes I use it to my advantage because it gets me so hyper focused. I'll do a video on that later on. It doesn't mean that you need anxiety or you need to be anxious in order for you to work on. You just need to get your body going. Watch the video that I did about doing something to focus your mind and doing something to focus your body every morning. Remember, I tell you, I get up, I do something physical. I get up, I do something mental. I get ready. I get in my zone, right? And thank goodness that I've been in summer school. I've been doing summer school for special ed. And so it's a little bit over a mile from here, from the house. And so I walk and then I walk back. Hey, exercise. Who would have thunk it, right? That's something physical that I do. And it gets me going because by the time I get to the school, my mind is sharp. My body's ready. And I can play with the kids. I can support the students in any way I can. And I'm ready to adapt if I have to. So again, right, let's go back to trauma again. And I'm going back to trauma, our main topic. And so there's 2 types of traumas. One is direct and one is indirect. Because just as much as something happens to you, and you're not able to deal with it, or you're not able to comprehend what's going on and it overwhelms you, there's also indirect trauma where you see something happening to somebody else or a group of people, or you hear about it, and then that creates trauma, indirect trauma as well. So there's a lot of different ways to deal with trauma. Does it go away? Eventually. But it takes a while sometimes. Again, right? It depends on how deep-rooted it is, how deep-rooted your memory is, how deep-rooted that experience is, how deep-rooted it is to deal with it. So when I was in actually going back to El Salvador, one time, and I told this story, go back to my video. I don't know which video I did, but there was a story where there was a firefight going on between the rebels and the soldiers. The helicopter was flying up above our house. My mom, my brother, who was barely like 2 or 3 months old, and we were all under the table. As the helicopter was shooting, the shells were hitting our roof. And at first I thought it was rain, but then it didn't sound like rain because it sounded like, it was harder than rain. And the thing is, once I realized what it was, and once I was so hyper focused, because again, right, it's a firefight. I mean, they waited until I went in the door before they started fighting, and that's what I thought. All right, that's from my perspective. And so, I mean, I was so hyper focused that if you would see my arms, you can see that, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps because I can hear the shells hitting a roof, and I was 8 and 9. I'm 49, and I can still do that. It's not as bad as before, ladies and gentlemen. I get goosebumps, but I don't go beyond that. Before, I would have nightmares. Sometimes I would get up sweating. Sometimes I didn't want to go in to certain places because of the way that the sounds were being made, because it sounded similar to those shells hitting the roof, but I processed it little by little. I had help with others. I talked to others. I processed it myself. I mean, trauma is something that can hold you back. And I don't want you to be held back, right? Remember, we're moving forward, right? We're not going to reminisce in the past. And it's goosebumps right now. If you would be here, you would see the goosebumps on my arms. But that's just goosebumps. It's okay. It's my body telling me we're having a little bit of a reaction because of the memory of the shells hitting your roof when you were 8 or 9. Imagine that. It's that much. I would rather have this than have an anxiety attack because I hear shells. There's so many different things that could cause trauma. You don't know that. One time, my family and I, and this was during, I think it was during high school, or maybe I just started UC Davis for my undergrad. And so we went to a river, and I can't swim worth a... I can swim now a little bit. I'm not the best of swimmers. I love the water, by the way. I love just sitting in the bottom of a pool or in the bottom of water and just sitting there and just nothing, right? Imagine that. Nothing. It's just silence. It's like meditation, but it's induced by the silence of the water. It's amazing. I love it. And so we were in the river. The river was not flowing it was flowing, but so I turned around. My brother is going up and down. And I said, holy crap, I need to do something. I'm not the best swimmer at that time. I'm not even the best swimmer right now. And so I tippy-toed as much as I could, and I was able to grab him. And I don't know how, right? Remember those stories where the parent or the mom just lifts something up or just moves something out of the way, or they do something that they wouldn't do? I dragged my brother. Well, not drag, because he wasn't on the thing. He was just bobbing up and down, and I brought him to the shore. And I still remember that. And it was right when I was 18. Goosebumps again, right? Goosebumps are good. Goosebumps, it means that it's not internalizing here. Anxiety's not building. But I still remember. Because remember, that's one of the last things that I'm going to say. Trauma, you'll never forget. The physical effect that your body does to protect you, that will slowly go away. And it won't go away. It'll just be different ways that your body's communicating with you. Your mind is communicating with you. Again, goosebumps is good versus not being able to be in a place where it feels like shells are going. For the longest time, I hated the water. With a passion. But it was because I wasn't processing that my brother was drowning, and I needed, and if it wasn't, and I wished I would have known how to swim so I would have gotten to him faster, but at least I got there because I wasn't stopped. And that's one of the things. I'm gonna tell you a term. It's called catatonic. Catatonic is when you freeze when something's happening. You don't know why. You just freeze because you don't know what you need to do in that situation. So to deal with that catatonic, you need to be in the present moment. You need to unfreeze yourself if you need. And remember, keep in mind that if something's happening, keep yourself safe. And if you can bring somebody in and keep them safe, great. But remember, there's so many things that deal with trauma. I'm going to have to make a second video because there's so many different things. So here's some things. Journal. Write down. You need to free flow and journal all of your thoughts on topics that you think are holding you back or are giving you anxiety or nervousness or anything like that. A list of things that whenever you want to do them, you kind of don't because of that. Because there's trauma at a certain spectrum, right? At a certain level, there's trauma involved in that. And that's why it's hard for you to get to it. Remember, our goal is to move forward and look ahead and get to your goals, right? And get to and be mind-body balance. But there are going to be times when you're not. And you have to accept it. Because once you accept it, then now your mind becomes here and now you're ready to make decisions. Remember, when those situations happen, right? Accept it. There's different ways to do that. I may do a video on how to accept things so that way you can move forward, but you accept it. I'm here. I know it sucks. I may be goosebumps, right? That's me accepting. My goosebumps here, it's me accepting. But I'm here and now, so I can make the best decisions right now. And that's why I'm giving you all of these tools, so that way we can talk about trauma. So there will be a part 2 to trauma, because you barely touched on the indirect and a direct trauma. So let's stop here. If you have any comments, put them in the comment section. If you want to connect with me in those social media, Facebook, search for me, Carlos Flores Jr. On Instagram, search for me at Back on Basics. On X, search for me at Back on Basics. Again, right? You're not alone, ladies and gentlemen. You have a support system. You have your village. Believe me, if people can be honest with themselves, anywhere from 99 to 100% of people have dealt with some kind of trauma, directly or indirectly. I'm just helping you so that way you can deal with any future potentials, so that way you can accept where you are and you can move forward. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, Back on Basic 9985. Hit the notification button so you can get notified of any new videos. Till next time, Back on Basics.